So I think the next few sessions, we're up here really as the first dancers on the dance floor, to go back to the previous analogy, because we've started on a journey, and I think the idea of this is to tell you why we started on that journey, what we've been doing, and perhaps give some inspiration for others who might want to and are thinking about going on that journey. The sort of thinking behind it for us was really about, going to get clients paying for get clients to pay for the things that they really value. That was the thinking behind our journey, and so that's the title of my talk. I just want to go back in time before we talk about the future, and I want to start by talking about a baby, and not just any baby, but a floating baby. And this is the launch, as some of you may remember, in 1994, 20 years ago, of Orange. And at the time, you may have heard the story before, but a new mobile phone network was about to be launched, and WCRS, our advertising agency, had been tasked with promoting it. And a week into the brief, Robin White walked into Larry Barker, our ECD's office, and said to him, looked at the pad on his desk and said, "That's it, you're a genius, you've got it." And written on the pad was, "The future's bright, the future's orange." And the rest, as they say, is history, because those few words became more than the basis of just a TV ad or indeed a campaign. It entered the vernacular, it built their business, and in probably one of the best IPA Grand Prix ever, created 3 billion of shareholder value. In fact, Robin likes to say that because the company was sold for 100 billion, the 3 billion somewhat understates it. But the point is, it was so much more than an ad campaign, and it was so much more than those few words. But ultimately, of course, that is all that we got paid to do, is make some ads, and the time that went into that, as we've already explored this morning. And of course, it was good for our business. We received lots of plaudits, creative, effective. Business flowed through the door. Lots of people came in saying, "Could you do me an orange?" As if it were that simple. And we won a lot of new business as a result of it. There is no question. But it is, I suppose, the best example in our history where simple outputs, rather than the value of an idea, seem to signify a real undersell. And I remember at the time, in the few years that followed, I've been at the agency all that time, although I didn't work on the launch of Orange, and I was the planner on Mini. And wrote the original brief for the launch of Mini, what then became It's a Mini Adventure. And I remember thinking, it's absolutely daft, this business we're in, that we charge, it's always seemed to me bizarre. And when I then got into agency management and started to run the agency, I have since then, I think, been seeking a way to really transform this. And there has been one example in our history, not to be completely negative about the way we've been paid, where we really did see the rewards of the value that we created. And that was when we created the 118 brand. And that was a client who was very forward-thinking, who said to us, "This is a new market, 192 is being deregulated. If you can create for us a substantial market share," and at the time the target that they set was 20%, "we will reward you." And the bonus scheme that we had in place, the performance-related pay, was uncapped, and we achieved 60% market share, and again, very famous IPA Effectiveness Award. And that was where we felt we really were rewarded, because the client paid us a huge sum of money for having really helped to create that market leadership really from the off. And it was a matter of probably 3 or 4 months, and we could see what we had done. And within the year, we were paid that money. But that is probably one of the only examples where what I would call transformative business value, creation of transformative brand and business value, we have really been rewarded for that. So 20 years on from the Orange campaign, not much has changed. But the way that agencies work and what agencies do, so much of that has changed. And what's most frustrating is that for me, is that incorporating a value-based remuneration model is so much a win for clients as in agencies, because we've all got examples of where we have created this kind of transformative value. So if I think about now, why is now a good time? And I do feel that all of the stars have aligned, that now is the perfect time for us as an industry to work with our clients to really make the step change. Why is that? Well, firstly, because agencies are much more adaptive and agile than ever before. Technological developments are part of that. So what we do for clients is so far away from what we used to do. We no longer write a TV script, go and shoot a TV ad, chuck a few print ads and radio on the end of it. Every single channel is important, the way that those channels work together. Secondly, the emerging technologies allow us to see that cause and effect so quickly. So we know almost immediately what kind of value we're providing in the short term. And in the old days, you had to wait quite some time before you knew that. And also, let's not forget that in the boardroom, it's an era of accountability, and clients are talking about being aligned with their goals. So now is the time when the clients are talking the right language. And we have decided that now we need to make that first step. So we've started on a journey with Caroline's company, the Clear Partnership, this year. And we've really been on this journey for probably 6 or 7 months. So I don't have any amazing, this is how it transformed our margins, this is how the business transformed, but I want to talk you through the thinking process and the numbers and why we actually decided to take the step. So let's look at the numbers. It's not a pretty picture. This is the Kingston Smith Financial Performance and, of Marketing Services Companies survey. And what it shows, UK marketing and sales promotion, 8%, digital, 8.2%. That's the top 50 digital agencies in the country who submit their financial data, and it's then aggregated. Top 50 advertising agencies, that includes a lot of independents, but even if you look at the networks, 11.8. And this is only going to get worse because digital, the margins in digital are lower, and the proportion of work that we do that is digital is getting bigger. So that is undoubtedly going to affect the margins. As we as Engine have grown our digital basis, and as we've grown our capabilities, we've had to take a long, hard look about how do we make sure that we don't go from the right-hand side to the left-hand side. Thankfully, we're better than the right-hand side, but how do we make sure we don't end up on the left-hand side, particularly when our model is all about integration, best-in-class agencies all under one roof. So it's not a case of just charging for one discipline. We are working with clients on an average of 3 or 4 disciplines. How do we charge for adding that all together? What's the value we're adding there, and how do we charge for that? So we're starting with margin, starting with trying to drive the margin. And I think that the kind of aha moment when chatting to Caroline about this was this chart, which is Caroline's chart from the Clear Partnership, which looks at the margin at various kind of models. So what we call sort of the fat man, and then the average man, and then the muscly man. So, kind of fat man, probably, as we looked at it, most agencies, if you assume a gross income per head of £90,000 and an average salary cost of 57.5, this is all from the data I showed you before, and overheads of 25, that gives you a margin of 8%. If you can then get a little bit more into shape and you can actually get 95 income per head, that'll give you a margin of 13. But where you can really win as an agency, sort of muscle man at 110, and that of course doesn't mean that you're necessarily using different people. You could be using the same people to do different things. If we can really show clients that we're adding value, we can, and I'm not saying we can achieve 25% overnight, we can start to head towards that. And I think it was when I saw this and thought about this and thought, how do we get from the left to the right? This was, I suppose, the aha moment. Looks very simple, incredibly difficult to do. So what are we doing? Well, we've just started on what we are seeing as a 2 or 3 year journey, but certainly a 2-year journey. Each of our businesses is looking at what they do and what clients really value about what they do, and how we charge clients for those products, productizing and charging accordingly. So we are not dumping the time-based model, just to be clear. We are saying, how do we make sure that more of what we do in the value-added space and where we are really transforming clients' business, that we get paid for it. So this is how we sort of think about it. And again, this is from Caroline. So Caroline mentioned earlier, most of the business that any agency is in is what we call the do for me. So this is where it's the day-to-day, it's doing, I suppose, campaigns which clients would consider absolutely necessary, but they're not setting the world on fire and they're not transforming their business. Then maybe 20% comes from consulting, the help me think. So helping clients think about their business and starting to add value, but again, not transformative. And then on the right-hand side, kind of transformational thinking, what we call the think for me, is where agencies can create ideas that make a real change to the business. And that, if Orange would have been one, 118 would have been one. In today's world, If you build an app, and we've started to do this, having a revenue share with the client, because if you really are going to do something different and have an ownership of that IP with the client, if it was your idea, there's no reason why you shouldn't be paid for it. And the margins in this area, we are finding in conversations with clients, they are more willing to contemplate, pay more for that, than they are on the left-hand side, the day-to-day. So again, getting paid for what clients really value. And the business transformation process of going from getting the balance right on the do for me, help me think, and think for me is a client journey. So clients are going with us on this journey. We've chosen a few clients who are forward thinking and want to help us develop this model and can say to us straight off, I really value that, I'll be prepared to pay more for it. That stuff there, I don't really need you to put your best people on that, or I don't really want to pay as much for it. So we're working with clients on not only the way in which our business is structured, but the way in which the teams are structured, and the way in which they can see. It's almost like a mirror. They say to us, this is what I want you to do for me. As soon as they see that we're able to deliver that value-added work, they're saying we're prepared to pay more for you. So it's a kind of three-stage framework, helping, understanding what is in the left-hand side, understanding what's in the middle, understanding what's in the right, and immediately what you notice is there isn't enough in the right. So very little, and when Martin showed his charts earlier from the data globally, very little of what clients are paying for is in that right-hand side. And yet, sometimes by sheer coincidence, Meerkat being another great example where we are creating transformative business value and we're coming up with things which are genuinely different. I think that, again, the growth of digital means that clients are ready for that conversation. And we're finding that if you go to them with something and you say, do you know what, we'll put some skin in the game. We will actually pay for some of this development work. We won't even, it's not that we'll do it for no margin. We won't even charge you for it. Then they will be prepared to contemplate it because they can see you are really passionate about it. They can see that you're prepared to take the risk. We're finding this more in our digital agencies, but we're also finding it in WCRS, our advertising agency. So it comes down to, for us, focusing not just on inputs and outputs and outcomes, but all three. And across all the disciplines, we're trying to champion this model. We've chosen 4 of our businesses to start with. Then we're going to do it at an engine-wide level. And I have to say we wouldn't be able to do this without 3 or 4 forward-thinking clients. And that is the question which everyone has to ask themselves is, who are the clients that are prepared to sort of be the pioneers on that journey? Because you'd be amazed, once 2 or 3 clients have done it, other clients say, yes, it can be done. And the same goes for agencies. When I look at where we are, and I listen to some of what's been said this morning, it is quite depressing. I would add 2 more kind of things that are going on, which I think are a road to hell for us. And the first is the rise of the e-auction. So, I don't know if you've ever been asked to do an e-auction. We've been asked several times, probably 3 times a year, but that is increasing. It was probably once a year, 2 or 3 years ago. And when they first came along, we thought, okay, we haven't done this before. We'll kind of suck it and see. We'll try it out. We did it on a project which was probably worth about £250,000. And we lost it on £1,500. And we said to the client, really, do you actually think that you are comparing exactly the same product? And they said, yeah, as far as we're concerned, it's all equal. The other one was £1,500 cheaper, so we went with them. And that was the day we decided that we weren't going to be doing e-auctions anymore. So you guys can all do them, and good luck to you. But I feel that it's a way of commoditizing our services, and by saying, actually, that's fine. We aren't really in the creative business. We aren't really in the adding value to your business. We should be saying we believe in ourselves. We believe in ourselves. We believe in our ability to come up with brilliant examples, of which there are scores. I've mentioned 2 or 3, but there are hundreds. And if we are prepared to say that and prepared to put our money where our mouth is, then we shouldn't be engaging in things like e-auctions. The second one is, and I've seen a trend towards clients asking for a blended rate. So clients saying, could you quote us on the blended rate? So rather than, an account manager gets charged at £70 and a creative director at £200, what's your blended rate? Is it, That, I think, also creates the wrong behavior. It makes us put cheaper people on the business. I'm not saying that we do that willingly, but subconsciously you're thinking, well, if this is a blended rate, actually, am I going to make money if I put those expensive creatives on it? You can't help yourself but think that. So whilst there is, and I agree with one of the comments earlier that there is a place for time-based, it is how we ultimately charge for that. And also, not all people, not everyone is equal. And Martin said earlier, some people highly valued and prepared to pay for those. Fantastic. Work out who in the client contract is highly valued and work out how you can charge for them. So on that basis, we are working the time-based model, I think, better. But we're also looking at putting clients first, and by doing this, I believe this is the route to getting to the top table, back to the top table. So I would say we're at the top table with some of our clients, definitely not as many as we used to. I agree with Martin, we're not nearly as close to the business action as we should be. Partly because we believe that as clients have reduced the retainer, and they say, we'll have you on a lower retainer, and then a higher project base on top, you feel like you can't have people, very senior people, doing all the extra things you used to do to really, really get under the skin of the client's business. Whereas if you're in the right-hand side and you're saying, actually, we're going to be so embedded with you that your business success is going to drive our business success, you are going to be all over that client's business. You're not going to be able to stop your people from being there. Because this ultimately is motivating for our people too. And that's sort of the point that I want to finish with. What motivates our people makes them do better work, and what makes them do better work is what makes clients want to pay us more. It's the same reason that awards are important. You know, I don't care about awards for awards' sake, but when you hear the McDonald's client at Cannes stand up and say, 5 years ago we were here and we'd never won an award, and we set that as an objective because we knew that that's how we'd get the best people to want to work in our business. The same goes for this. If you were someone coming up in the business and you could see that your agency was spending all its time on the left-hand side versus more being pushed into the right-hand side, that's the kind of agency you're going to work with. And I don't know about you, but I want my unfair share of the best talent. And this is our way of starting to do it. Thank you.